Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another really massive live stream. A big show for you guys. So, a few weeks ago, I did a live stream reporting that President Trump had gathered his entire cabinet, a bunch of economic policymakers in his administration. He gathered all of them to Mar-a-Lago to hold an emergency meeting to go over plans to conduct and implement the greatest, most aggressive affordability reforms we've seen in the country in recent years, specifically on housing affordability and many other things. But this year was to be the year of affordability. That's what Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, said, who is one of the big people handling the economy. He's not just handling money, he's doing a lot more. So we have been told by the administration that 2026 was the year to make the domestic economy boom. And the reason this is important is because the midterms are this year, right? We can't have Democrats making ads about affordability and them have a little bit of a point. We can't have that. So the Trump team has correctly assessed that they need to do everything in their power to bring costs down, especially on the bigger items, rent, mortgages, interest payments on those mortgages, car loans, interest payments on those car loans. Many policies have already been implemented. We had the $25,000 deduction for taxes on tips that essentially covers all tip workers because they earn less than that in tips. So the $25,000 covers everybody. I think it was $12,500 for overtime pay, which again covers 90% of overtime pay workers. They get all their money back, no tax on that. And I think it's like a few $1,000s for seniors who get taxed on their benefits. So a lot of policies have already been implemented. We are going to start to see them this year as people file their taxes. So the question was, what was the Trump administration planning for housing? What is that big move they're making to transform the country in that regard? Well, why do I have 4 tabs open? You know, it makes it really hard to live stream when you have 4 tabs open. But anyways, the president has started. The aggression has started, and it seems to be unstoppable right now. I wonder if we could zoom in a little bit more. Yeah, I think this is good. So, the president did one thing, and then another thing, and then another thing. So, we're not just talking about one item today. We're covering a lot. Okay, we're a lawnmower today. We're covering a lot of grass, a lot of ground. He posted, Biden ignored the housing market and instead was immersed with high crime, open borders, and runaway inflation, which just means high inflation. Okay, I think we have to move ourselves a little bit. Okay, I think that's fine. Truth Social, please, Devin Nunes, make this website intuitive. I can't zoom in correctly. It's all messed up. The Afghanistan disaster and a military that he left in chaos and confusion. Everything was broken, but I, as President of the United States, I'm so annoyed by this. Okay, let's just do this. Yeah. But I, as President of the United States, have already fixed it. Now, I'm giving special attention to the housing market. Because I chose not to sell Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac in my first term, a truly great decision, and against the advice of the experts, it is now worth many times that amount, an absolute fortune, and has $200 billion in cash. Because of this, I am instructing my representatives to buy $200 billion in mortgage bonds. This will drive mortgage rates down, monthly payments down, and make the cost of home ownership more affordable. It is one of my many steps in restoring affordability, something that the Biden regime absolutely destroyed. We are bringing back the American dream that was destroyed by the last administration. Okay, so the president started with a $200 billion mortgage bond buy by Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. What that means is, so when you go get your mortgage from the bank, you're technically buying it from a consortium of investors across the country who buy the bonds. So all those mortgages get packaged into debt, and then that debt gets sold to the open market. And if the demand for the debt is high and people are buying it, then the interest on the debt is low. So the returns on investment, the relationship in the securities exchange market, the treasury notes, all these things, that relationship is not as straightforward as supply and demand. In supply and demand, the more demand, the higher the price. Sure, technically the price goes up on higher demand in the securities market, in the mortgage, in the bonds market, but the rates go down. So the return on investment goes down the more investors buy up these securities, buy up these bonds. So the president is literally artificially doing his own quantitative easing, which is the process the Federal Reserve does to pump money back into the economy to stimulate activity. So the feds will do a similar thing by buying up government assets, buying up debt, buying up everything. They create money out of thin air. They buy a bunch of bonds and treasuries and everything else, and they hope that drives down interest rates. So then investors and consumers can borrow money at a cheaper rate, and then they can spend it and stimulate the economy. So Trump is doing the same thing without the Federal Reserve this time. Like, he's just doing it by himself. Sure, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac often buy bonds, but not to this level. Like, this is unprecedented. So he's taking massive action here. And we're already seeing the results, actually. Immediately after his announcement, mortgage rates dropped to the lowest level in nearly 3 years. So under 6%, they touched 5% for the first time. Still above like 5%, 5.99, but the trend is good, as Trump orders buying of $200 billion in bonds. And I saw a lot of real estate creators on TikTok. They were happy. A lot of agents were happy because the lower the rates, the more buyers you're going to have, the more customers they're going to have, the more money that's going to be moving in the real estate industry. So it's good for everybody when rates go down. Sometimes prices go up, but it's not the inverse, where if prices go up, then rates go down. Sometimes rates come down, but prices still go up, or they come down. I don't think we're going to be seeing price hikes. I think we have significantly more sellers than buyers, and we need the buyers to catch up to what's on the market, the inventory. So home sales need to catch up, so buyers are still going to have that power. Sellers can't just start increasing prices like idiots. That's not how that works. So we are seeing in real time, as the president makes these kinds of announcements, the market reacts. And now someone is going to save $100 a month in interest. This is important. This is how you win elections. And not just elections, but this is how you have a serious country where everyone owns a home. That's not all, ladies and gentlemen. That is not all. The president made another announcement. For a very long time, buying and owning a home was considered the pinnacle of the American dream. It was the reward for working hard and doing the right thing. But now, because of the record high inflation caused by Joe Biden, by the way, when Trump says the inflation was caused by Joe Biden, a lot of the people on the left say, actually, Trump did the stimulus package when he was president during COVID. True. Trump did print a lot of money. Let's not get that twisted. But the difference was he printed the money to stimulate the economy as he was reopening. Joe Biden came in and closed everything back up, but still printed the money. So we just had a bunch of surplus money, but no productivity to show for it. So we printed money and put it into the economy, and it wrecked everything. And that's why we have inflation. Inflation is not a thing if you have the value in production going up at the same time. then you just have no inflation or little inflation. And he says this inflation was caused by the Democrats in Congress as well. The American dream is increasingly out of reach for far too many young people, especially young Americans. It's for that reason and much more that I am immediately taking steps to ban large institutional investors from buying more single-family homes. I love this, and I'll be calling on Congress to codify it. People live in homes, not corporations. I will discuss this topic, including further housing and affordability proposals and more at my speech in Davos in 2 weeks. Hey man, why are you going to the World Economic Forum? Okay, well, anyways, it's a forum for business people. He's going to court investment. He's not going there to be a globalist. He's going to go tell the investors there to bring their money to America because that's what he likes to do. Make deals. So what does this mean? I'm going to be honest. It's a little bit of a sloppy thing to say that institutional investors bought a bunch of houses and that's why the prices went up as much as they did. It's not really true. It is a factor, but not by a super percentage. Institutional investors still make up a handful of the percentage of total home buyers. The people that own as investors, the majority would be small buyers like myself, right? I bought real estate not to rent, but to renovate. I'm doing my HGTV thing. I'm doing my Chip and Joanna Gaines. I'm renovating, which is different from renting. I don't want to deal with renters. But investors like myself, the medium level or low level investors that have a few and, will transact in real estate a few times a year, that's not who he's talking about. But those were the majority that own a substantial share of the single family homes. But we're doing value addition. So we're buying homes that are, ripped up and cigarette houses, and we're ripping it apart and creating a new one. So that's who he's talking about, right? He's not, well, no, that's not who he's talking. He's talking about Blackstone. And if you look at the numbers, they're still substantial, especially in some regions where they, are up to 10% of the home buyers, and they buy in a lot of the Airbnb-friendly cities and regions, and they work with economies of scale. So they buy as much as possible, and if they cash flow $200 from one house, they'll duplicate that 50 million times, and suddenly they're making enough money to subsidize future purchases, nearly on a monthly basis. So, and what I also like about what he's saying is he's not forcing any sales. That's socialism. That's a disrespect of private property. But he's saying, let's just slow down on that. And I think that's a great thing. So this is going to free up more housing. I don't think we have a supply problem at this point. We have a demand problem. So people need to take advantage of the lower interest rates. People will remember the 2.5% interest rates in Trump's first term. So a lot of them have just been waiting for rates to get that low. And I think honestly at this point, if you're thinking of buying a house, you should. This would be a great time for it. Because you have all the leverage as a buyer. You can sit down with a seller and say, I want $100,000 off. And a lot of them will listen to you if they want it bad enough, right? If they want to just get rid of the house and they already had, hundreds of thousands in equity, they're going to be thinking to themselves, okay, well, what's $50,000 off to me, right? They'll get rid of the house for very, huge concessions. So buyers have all the power. Plus, interest rates can always be refinanced. You can always go from a 30-year mortgage to another 30-year mortgage, with a lower interest a few months down the line or a few years down the line. So this isn't financial home advice. I'm not your realtor, but if you're buying, you should probably consider now as a perfect time. My two sisters and their husbands just bought their homes. They got scammed, to be honest. They could have negotiated a lot better. Those agents were lousy. I told them that. But yeah, they bought. They still tried to get concessions out, and they did. Those sellers were lucky to get them as buyers, pre-qualification and everything. So anyways, what I mean to say is that this is good. It's not this one thing, it's everything else that he's doing. And you know what else the president is doing in terms of affordability? This is huge. So on the campaign trail, Trump mentioned that he wanted to cap credit card interest rates, which is some socialism policy, but I'll explain why he's doing it. And I want to gauge whether or not you guys agree, because I'm mixed on this. On the one hand, I'm a free market, let the market figure it out. But on the other, I do see predatory interest rates when we all know it's predatory. But here's what the president said.
And while working Americans catch up, we're going to put a temporary cap on credit card interest rates. We're going to cap it at around 10%. We can't let them make 25 and 30%.
So he said we want to cap credit card interest rates. Now, the president has posted that please be informed that we will no longer let the American public be ripped off by credit card companies that are charging interest rates of 20 to 30% and even more, which festered unimpeded during the sleepy Joe Biden regime. Affordability, effective January 20th, 2026, I, as President of the United States, am calling for a one-year cap on credit card interest rates of 10%. Coincidentally, the January 20th date will coincide with our one-year anniversary of the historic and very successful Trump administration. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So Trump wants to further reduce the burden on people. I mean, we're seeing 30, 40% interest rates on some people's credit cards. These banks have gotten out of control. And it's crazy because the same banks will give 2%, 5%, 10% interest rates to Europeans. But to Americans, we're seeing, 33, 35%. It's ridiculous. I know some of my credit cards, I mean, they're not, I have some decent rates on some, I have decent rates. I'm not, one of them, I think the lowest I have is like 17.5. The highest I have is like 30 or 34 or something, but it's bad. All of it is bad. What that does is it prevents people from spending in the economy and stimulating economic activity. So this is another version of quantitative easing for him, right? He wants to stimulate the economy by lowering interest rates on credit cards, money cards. So I think here's the capitalist argument against this. You let the markets decide. The reason the rates are high is to discourage people who can't pay the high interest from getting the cards and then running up like massive consumer debt and then defaulting. I get that point. The pragmatic argument, which is what Trump is going with, is that, hey, we're in a very bad economic spot, but we're on our way up. And these companies are taking advantage of the situation and they're overcharging. So he's in the middle. I think he's saying, look, for a year, we're going to do this temporary thing. Just pause it at 10%, and then you can figure it out from there. Those companies make billions every year. It's not like and most of their money isn't even from interest. It's from swipe fees. So every time you swipe, it's like a 3% fee. So Trump is probably going to convince those companies to do that. Now, Bill Ackman said, Bill Ackman is the billionaire. He replied to my post. No, he replied to a different post, not this one, on X. And he said, this is a bad idea. This is going to mean millions of credit cards canceled. Sure. I get that. So that's why this is nuanced. You can't necessarily say it's only this way and that's how it's going to work. So I want to know your thoughts, actually. What do you think? And this guy is saying, I can't say it enough. You are not bullish enough. We are running it hot at all cost. Every sector, every trick in the book. Yeah, Trump is literally using every trick in the book right now to get to that next level with the economy. So now, after that announcement, mortgage rates, I did tell you that already. This is what I wanted to show you. So the economy overall, this is going to be like our little economic report. The economy is doing well. The problem is, and everyone kind of feels this, the economy, the numbers are doing well, but people still feel like there's something that needs to be done with wages and also job creation. That's the thing, right? In Trump's first economy, job growth was historic. So that's why people felt this, oh my gosh, it was so, because job security was high, because there was so much competition for labor. But now you have a huge problem where productivity is gaining, but labor counts are staying stagnant. So job creation is very tame. It's actually the lowest in 20 years or something. And it's not leftist propaganda. That's simply because artificial intelligence is making workers more productive. Q3 of 2025 saw almost a 5% boost in productivity. So people are working faster and harder. Wages are going up too, but companies, because people are, one employee is starting to do twice as much without, twice as much time. Companies are just like, all right, we don't need to hire that many people. Plus, a lot of companies overhired after COVID. They got a lot of government stimulus and they were just hiring like crazy. But now they're like trimming down. So the expectation this year is with a stimulation of the economy. So whatever Trump is doing with, trying to force money to stay in people's pockets, that's going to increase profits for companies who then will increase investments back into their own businesses and thereby hiring more people. So I think that issue will be solved. I don't think AI is going to end everything like people say. It's already creating a bunch of different jobs. In fact, reports are coming out that AI is leading to job creation. And Trump is the AI president. He's giving big tech all the data centers they want. He's giving them the electricity plans that they need. He's telling them we're going to build small nuclear reactors to nuclear power plants to produce as much energy as possible to compete with China. I think they sold like a few coal leases, and there's going to be, millions of tons of coal that are going to be grabbed out of the ground to produce energy. So we're going to be the AI country, right? We don't want to fall behind to China, because losing the AI race, I don't know if people understand this. I get the concerns over, your electricity bills and water bills, but those are going to be the least of our concerns if China wins the AI race and they control the world. Every Chinese AI company is the preferred brand or company for every for every country in the world. That would suck. So we have to win it to control the next 150 years. If China controls AI, their GDP gets higher than ours. They can spend more on defense than us. And suddenly they're blockading our trade and they're choking us out of countries. And we can't go and grab dictators in the middle of the night and bring them to Manhattan to face criminal charges. We can't do that. So we need to win the AI race. We need to win the robotics race. We need our companies to, like, you look at the top 25 companies in the world right now. I think like 22 are American companies, and that's how it should be. In fact, I'm disappointed it's not all 25. Our companies need to keep growing. They need to own major market share, and we need to own the world. Make as much money as possible so we can keep this thing afloat. Because the moment the country starts to contract economically, we're in trouble. So Trump understands that. That's why he's pushing for growth policies. He's terminating regulations that slow down entrepreneurs, and he's freeing businesses. And that's why so many companies are launching chip fabrication plants. Chips are in everything we use. Anytime you see a wire and a little bit of complexity behind it, there's a chip behind there, answering your request, right? When you use your phone, there's a billion components that are used in there, and chips are all over the place. We need semiconductors on a massive scale, right? So Micron just broke ground on their 20 billion facility in upstate New York, I believe. Taiwan Semiconductors, to his credit, the CHIPS Act under Biden subsidized a lot of this. Trump would have just given them tariffs and achieved the same thing. I mean, he got Taiwan Semiconductors to double their investment or triple it. And he didn't need to give them any subsidies. He just tariffed them or threatened to tariff them. So, yeah, but Biden gave them the subsidy and they started building fabrication plants in Arizona. Intel is now starting to produce one of the most powerful chips in the country. And they have huge demand. You won't believe the demand that these companies are dealing with, especially with AI needing as much computing power as it needs. Anyways, I'm yapping over here. So here's the economy here's the economy as presented by Trump, the overall economy. So Trump has added 11x more jobs than red tape-ridden states won by Trump have added more jobs. True. A lot of the economic stagnation is happening in blue states, but the red states, Mississippi just won a multi-billion-dollar investment from Elon Musk. That's going to create thousands of jobs directly and indirectly. That's huge for the state. Construction job gains are in red states, and all manufacturing job losses are in blue states, states with high regulations and high electricity cost. Industries need low energy cost. Private sector annual wages are on track to rise $2,700 for a full-time worker. Manufacturing is even higher at $3,000, so that's huge. The Atlanta Fed forecast that the economy will grow faster in quarter four than Q3 and Q2. They were predicting a recession. The trade deficit is the lowest since 2009. The tariffs have forced companies to figure out solutions to supply chains, and I thought it'd take a few years, but that deficit looks like it's going to hit zero at some point next year. That would be insane. Just think about that. That's because exports are growing, we're gaining access to new markets, and imports are decreasing. That's perfect. I think the exports number last year is the highest it's been ever in the country, ever recorded. Since Trump took office, all new jobs have gone to native-born workers. So, okay, that can't be real. 100%? Come on, man. That can't be real. There's no way that 100%, not 90%. All right, anyways, since January, the private sector accounts for all new jobs created. And this is the thing. The job losses, the layoffs, are in federal government jobs. So the government has been growing weaker in size and scale, but technically stronger in execution and efficiency, while the private sector has been growing in wealth, which is how it should be. Manufacturing is also booming. Manufacturing productivity and growth can be seen. Free Tina Peters, of course. So that's, an overview of the economy. Things, a few more things need to be done. Gas prices are already where they need to be. Well, they could get Venezuela. Okay, we'll see a $1 gas. And if we do, that should trickle down to everything else, right? Transportation cost, diesel, cargo shipping cost, cargo plane cost, everything related to the logistics and transportation industry should, get cheaper. And that should lead to lower cost for consumers, or at least higher profits, which means this is the thing the left doesn't understand. They say, but the profits don't always get passed down to the customers. Okay, well, what do you think happens when the billionaire takes all the profits in his company? Well, he's risking his company slowing down in growth by not reinvesting in his employees, in his operation, in his technology, in his plant, building a bigger, better facility, building better, more efficient customer service systems. So he's risking not growing more money by not reinvesting the money he gains. Two, even if he doesn't do that, he's going to take the money and spend it in the local economy of the area he's in, and anyways, right? He's going to spend the money in the economy at some point, which will go back into another company or a bunch of other companies who are then going to pass down that money to their consumers. And even if those companies don't, their CEOs all decide to hoard the wealth, they're still going to spend the money. Like that is how it works, right? So this idea that, fuel costs are lower and diesel cost and heavy fuel costs are lower, businesses won't pass down the savings. Well, it's not true. Historically, that's false. Savings do get passed down. It just so happens that the government has been printing money and we have had outrageous inflation for decades. And if we didn't have governments, inflating the money supply, we would have seen everything would be cheaper. But anyways, talking is hard. And I don't know why you guys are up this late. What's wrong with you guys, man? You're up at these unusual hours. I don't know why. Okay. Let's check out some of your comments here. Why do people feel entitled to other people's money? Yeah, I mean, leftists have a weird relationship with what's not theirs. It is entitlement. I don't know if you can ever fix it, man. It's sad. It's a behavioral problem. It's a morals problem. It's a big issue. You have people that, like, when Charlie Kirk got martyred, conservatives, his supporters, we held prayer vigils. Some lesbian whack job in Minneapolis, who had her kids taken from her, by the way, so she wasn't like some glory good mom, but she had a kid to get back to. Well, she stalked federal law enforcement agents, disobeyed their orders when they told her to stop. She blocked their path. And then when they told her to get out of the car, she ran one over, tried to. And then she got what was coming. And instead of, holding prayer vigils, the left is like looting stores in Minneapolis right now. So there's something deeply wrong with those people. It's actually sad. It is sad. You're up late because we're on the left coast. Yeah, it's only 10. Almost 11, though. People on the East Coast, anyone on the East Coast, what are you still doing up, man? Like, what's wrong with you? Go to sleep. You have a terrible sleep schedule. If you're up at these late hours, I'm saying that, and I'm the guy that does a live stream at 2 a.m. in the morning. I've done that before. Oh, gosh. What was I doing, man? I need to lock in. This is my year to lock in and start. No, I said when I turn 30, then I'll lock in. Then I'll lock in. What did Trump do? Yeah, let's restart the show, everybody. One guy got here late. We're going to restart the show. You got to rewind. I'm getting sleepy. You know what it is? This is why I get sleepy here. Then I'll end the stream and sleep won't come to me for hours. But you know what it is? I have like a filter removing blue light from my computer. And it starts at like 8. So over time, I start to get tired and I feel this warmth looking at the screen. It's horrible. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, let's pray. God, I thank you for everything. In Jesus' name, amen. What can I say? Short prayers, Thank God for everything. All right. let me know if, I don't know, let me know in the comments, because I do read the comments, you know. I do read all, well, not all, I try to read as many as I can. Let me know in the comments what you think about the credit card policy, because I'm really curious what the pulse is. It's a nuanced situation, right? It's a very nuanced situation. So, all right, good night, everybody. Good night. Have a great night.